For our next session, we have some invited speakers to kind of chat about their experiences using LibreTexts. We'll start off with our first authoring cohort, and that includes Janie Skinner and Fabie Morales, and they are working on a book in public health. And essentially the background of that is both of them attended office hours at different times, I think back in December of 2024, asking questions about authoring their very own book to fit the needs of their students in public health. And when I met both of them, I was like, hey, we got two people who really have a lot of passion, but they're at smaller schools. And we've had a lot of people mention community college faculty and the amount of bandwidth they have for editing and collaboration. So we put them together in one of our ad hoc cohort groups that I mentioned earlier today. And we'll give about a few minutes for that. Feel free to ask questions along the way. This is supposed to be an informal dialogue about experiences, authoring, getting started, what are the hurdles that you experience, what sorts of things helped you along the way in that process. And then following that, we'll have Heather Evans, who is an OER librarian at a school where they have a very accomplished group of faculty who have been building resources over the past few years as a LibreNet member campus and expanding access for their students to free textbooks. And then she'll share her experiences with that and their progress. So without further ado, Janie and Fabie, do you want to introduce yourselves and kind of give a little background about how you came into LibreTexts and what you've experienced so far?
Sure. Hi, Janie. Well, my name is Fabie. I work for Coastline College and I teach, one of the classes that I teach is public health. And so I was asked to put together the OER book for that particular class. And so I started to go to the Thursday office hours. And that's where I met Del Mar and I met Justin. And then one thing led to another. And I was asked to be part on the cohort, and the school graciously paid for it. And so here we are, the three of us. Janie joined us, and we formed this group, and it has been great. So it just has helped so much in getting the book to just kind of move along. At the beginning of starting the book, it was a little daunting, and thinking, okay, I need to put all this information together in a book format. And then I'm thinking I need to also learn the platform and all of that. It was like overwhelming. But when we got into the cohort, it was great because I could relax with putting together the content. And then Justin would actually be there to actually help navigate the platform. So I wouldn't have to learn the platform and then see how it works and apply all those technology that is behind, because that is already all done. And we have the expert to actually help us. So that was magnificent. And Justin is amazing. He is really willing to help with whatever question is coming up. And very, very timely, and just so sweet natured. So a jewel. And as far as like things that we ran into, at least in particular for me, Janie may share other things, but for me it was putting together like the elements. There is a particular feature in there where you can add elements that help with putting in images, put it in video, and navigating on how to best do that and be able to do it functionally within the platform so that at the end of the book, it actually all comes together nicely. So Justin really, really helped with that. Another thing that was really, really helpful was attributions. I'm very picky about making sure that all my attributions are putting in correctly. And I had all kinds of questions because, you know, not all of them are open domain. So navigating through how to best do that was a big deal. And so, yeah, Justin was amazing. He pulled through. And every time that I have a question, he's like, yeah, he's on top of it. So that was great. Let's see, what else do I have to share? Oh, and putting together the glossary for the book. So we're going through the content, and at one point, you at the end, it's really nice to have that glossary in there. So we took some time to figure out how that would connect with the content of the book, which was really, really helpful as well. Yeah, so Janie, you want to jump in here?
Sure. I echo a lot of what Fabie said about just having a cohort helps give me a little structure. I've been on sabbatical working on this project, and having Justin's help with all the technical stuff, so that when I'm like, I've tried to copy this page over, or tried to connect this to this, and I've tried 3 times, that doesn't work. And Justin's like, just let me know after the first time it doesn't work. And, and sometimes he can fix it. Sometimes he has to, it takes a while sometimes to figure out what's wrong to fix it. But it means I don't have to worry about that part. And it also means that Fabie and I, whether we're meeting every other week or every week or at whatever interval, we're just checking in and saying, and it's a reminder someone else is working on this. I can see how, now we're not a typical cohort in that we each started our books and we wanted them to match how we have the classes designed and our course outlines. Honestly, it would have been in some ways much easier if we were to just say, let's write one book, you do 5 chapters, I do 5 chapters, but we have slightly different writing styles. We have slightly different course outlines that we're trying to match to. And I will say we've both benefited by the fact that Erin Calderon at Glendale wrote an OER for an Intro to Public Health class like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so we've also both been able to draw on that. I've also found, I am also writing for an Intro to Public Health class. I didn't even say, I teach at City College of San Francisco. I'm a full-time faculty member there. And I've been teaching this class for 10 or 15 years. So I also had a lot of my own materials I had developed already. I had been using something called Soft Chalk. I don't know if any of you remember using Moodle books way back in the day, but I was using Moodle books. And then when we switched to Canvas, there was no book thing where you could group pages. And I didn't, for some reason, I don't know, in retrospect, it was just as easy to just make 10, 12 pages, but I wanted that grouping. So I started using Soft Chalk to group my lessons into, each of them are 10 to 20 pages long. So I felt like going into this, hey, I have a lot of material. Some of it needs updating, but I have a lot of material. I have Erin's stuff to draw on. I found a couple of public health nursing textbooks about nursing in the community or public health nursing that I've also been able to draw pages from the LibreTexts library. And I've spent quite a lot of time like looking through, oh, here's this sociology text. Oh, here's this environmental justice thing. Oh, here's this. A lot of that I didn't wind up using, but I'm hoping that it sort of bubbles up through in my own criteria of editing what I'm doing. And if I were a librarian, if I was a more organized person where I had been tracking where I saw interesting things in the spreadsheet that I started, or the Google Doc that I started, or the paper list that I started in any particularly efficient way, it would have been a lot easier to bring some of those things into the book as I'm actually writing it. I have to say, one of the things I've thought about is where are my strengths? And like this textbook, it's touching. I was excited about doing it because of some of the things I really like doing. But the truth is, there's also like a lot of things I'm not as good at. I'm not good at finishing projects. I'm really good at starting them. I'm really good at like scanning for interesting material. Synthesizing it down into a manageable size for students is less my strength. So it's been really, really interesting to think about, if I were going to do this again, how to build a cohort that had those complementary strengths better, and work on one book. I do think that probably would be more efficient, but I'm excited about what I'll come up with, whatever it winds up being. I think Justin said to me at one point, it doesn't have to be perfect out the gate. It has to be something that you feel better about giving your students than assigning a commercial textbook that only half of them buy. And so, I can reach that bar, and then I'll have feedback from students, and I'll have, I'm going to have a student activity to help me build that glossary of the more things that I haven't added myself. I'll have a student activity to help me build out case studies or help me build out more aspects of the book that I didn't get to in this first round. And then I think it'll get better over time. So that's my first take on things. I will say it's a bigger project. I knew it was a big project, but I was like, I have a lot and I have Erin stuff. It's not going to be that. It is a huge project. It is just a huge project. So.
Thank you both. I would also say Janie had some experience with our harvesting as well, because a lot of that soft chalk material she gave to us to harvest into her book to start with as well. And I don't know if you have any feedback on that or what the process was like for those starting it.
Oh my God, it was miraculous. Like it was like I was figuring I was going to have to go page by page and copy things I wanted to use. And instead, everything was brought in very quickly and efficiently. There were some little quirks, like soft chalk has a little icon that they use when you have certain things. So I have the icons, but I don't necessarily have the information behind the icon, but it's easy for me to go back to soft chalk and bring that in if I want to. For the most part, it also came in cleaner than it even was in soft chalk. Soft chalk, if any of you have used it, it's a little bit of a glitchy software. It has a lot of like unintentional formatting in the background, which may have been because I copied in from Moodle. I don't know, some stuff, or because I copied in from PDFs or something. Like maybe my fault, not soft chalk's fault, I'm saying. But to say that it was glitchy and now it's all clean and neat after it was harvested. And it meant that I could also start to visualize the book right away because I brought in my materials from the different modules or different sections I had in Canvas. And then I could start to say, okay, this I'm going to break into 2 chapters. This I'm going to keep as 1. This, yeah.
I think, Fabie, you've appreciated that legwork as well. I know that you're always excited to see when Janie finishes a section to kind of read over. Do you have any comments on sharing approaches to teaching the same material?
It's really nice to have somebody to collaborate with. And I really appreciate Janie's insight into certain things. We all have our strengths, and she has a particular one in a chapter that she's very passionate about. And I'm like, oh yeah. And when I read it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could totally see that. So it's really nice to have that input, and you're like, okay. And then she's so sweet. She's like, if you want any of this information, you can just bring it along and use it in your book, which is super nice. I love that. It's a true collaboration between the two of us and actually getting the book done, which is, the end goal of all of this. So it has been really nice. Yeah.
And I'll give an example of that too. Fabie was working on a chapter about epidemiology. And while she was drawing on some of the things from Erin's book, she was synthesizing it a little bit differently and shortening and combining and adding some own things. And I liked Erin's. I was like, I'll use that. Then I saw Fabie's. I was like, I like that better. So then I was able to bring Fabie's pages into my chapter on epidemiology. And then I can delete some of my stuff that was outdated or wordy. I tend to be wordy. So, yeah.
Feel free to unmute yourself or ask some questions in the chat. If you have some questions for what that process looks like from starting with a blank conductor project and moving on from there. And just so you know, they're still in the cohort. We're still growing. We're still meeting regularly. We're meeting next week. You can't have the books are still in the workbench because they're in progress getting built. I can share the link to Erin's book though.
Oh, and I'll say, I haven't even told you to this, but I talked to Erin this week. She's working on updating certain chapters, and she and I are going to talk next week about whether some of those are ones I've already worked on updating, or because she can't, well, actually I added her to my project so she can see my project. So, we're a cohort of 2 plus Justin plus kind of Erin. So
I know from chatting with lots of authors on LibreTexts that they enjoy having people reach out and say, I'm using your book and I want to modify it. That's always exciting. Other questions? All right. Well, thank you both very much. And we're going to move on to hearing from Heather, who works with the faculty who are building the books, to talk about that success story. And I want to say thank you again to Janie and Fabie, and I'll see you guys next week.
See you soon.
Are you two nurses? I don't think either of you are nurses.
No.
No, I'm a master's in public health.
Yeah, so am I. Mhm.
Great.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Heather Evans. I am an OER librarian for Coalinga College, which means that my job is providing structure and support for faculty, whether that's copy editing, licensing, research, locating resources, finding images, vetting, sort of across the board to help take some of that burden off of faculty. I went ahead and put together a little bit of a slideshow for us, just so you can see where things have been and what we've been working on. And so this is we were able to supercharge our OER adoption rate in large part because of our collaboration here with LibreTexts today. This last winter, it was in January, we were honored with the ASCCC's Exemplary Program Award. The 2025 is when they decided to focus on OER programs. We were co-winners with Diablo Valley, and we were really sort of latecomers to the game, and so it was unexpected and really thrilling to be able to get that level of recognition. Just so you have an idea of the situation that we're working with, Coalinga College is very small. We are in the middle of the Central Valley in California. It's a very rural, heavy agriculture, sparsely populated. We have 44 full-time faculty, and so our faculty teach a lot of different subjects, and they are responsible for a lot of different governance at the same time. Our student body is relatively small. The most recent number I could look up on our full-time equivalencies was about 800 students. And enrollment can be up to like 5,000. And so we have a lot of students who are coming part-time. And some of that has to do with the particular population we're serving. Like I said, it's incredibly rural. And the top industries are agriculture, education, incarceration, and oil drilling. Just for fun to throw that in there. And so work can be seasonal. People have less control over their schedules. They may be trying to work around a lot of other demands. We also cover approximately 2,000 square miles. And so traveling from one place to the next takes a lot. It's why even for the size that we are, we do have an annex that is approximately an hour away from the main campus, just to sort of reduce that travel time for students. And a lot of our population are migrant farm workers, or their families are involved in farm work. And we've got about above a 20% poverty rate. And so in terms of the need for free resources for our students, it's been fairly obvious for a really long time, but we were really struggling with figuring out how to make that transition as a campus. And so before 2023, we didn't really have anybody who was organizing or providing that support. And so we only saw about 10% of our full-time faculty using OERs at all. And as of now, we have 87% of our full-time faculty teaching with OER. And 53% of our transfer pathways can now be completed at the zero text cost pathway. We've still got another 30% that are about 1 to 2 courses away. And so we were really able to just make this massive sea change. Part of how we did this was we ran a really intensive marketing campaign for OERs. to get the word out, to address misconceptions, to start getting everybody on board. But we've really benefited from the fact that because we're fairly small, it's a really tight-knit community. And so when faculty decided, like when we decided as a community that this was a change that not only did we see the need for, but that we wanted to make and knew how we could make, it really helped getting a big rush. And honestly, that is part of what made LibreText a really invaluable partner for us. This is just another show of what we've been able to do in terms of providing transfer degrees now for our students. This is what you see 10 pathways now that transfer pathways that we offer that can be taken as ETC. And we have another 3 that are just 3 or 4 that are a couple courses away. And several of those you can see are in progress right now. Some of we have a couple of sticking points with some of the higher math courses in terms of supplemental materials and trying to get people away from paid homework systems. And so we're starting to move into broadening out our work into ADAPT as well. But primarily we have been working with the conductor. And the conductor has really helped with project management. So I am the OER person, and I need to manage projects of different scales for all of the faculty who are interested in adopting, and especially in the last when we made that shift, we were looking at like 20 projects at a time. And so in terms of, well, I'm not sure exactly where I want to go with this one. I'm looking at the slide now. So in terms of how we got there, let's just go ahead and talk about that for a sec. So in using project management language, we really did a hybrid agile and critical path planning implementation, which mostly means that we were willing and able to change directions when something wasn't working right. And also that we had a clear idea of which steps needed to happen in a specific order versus which steps we could just sort of like sidestep or loop back to or run at the same time. And so being able to run multiple projects at the same time really helped shorten that sort of critical path so that I wasn't necessarily a limiting factor in what it is that our faculty could do. I talked briefly about just the marketing blitz that we did to make sure that people saw OERs, saw what they can do, really started giving the idea about how it gives you ownership of the work that you're doing. And I work directly for the vice president of instruction, which means that I don't have to go through committees or multiple deans in order to pitch a new idea or report that like, hey, we thought something was going to work, but we're actually going to have to sort of switch gears here and maybe we want to do something else. We were lucky enough to already have a board that was really supportive of OER adoption. And so we didn't have to do policy changes on the district level, but we did have some local policies that we needed to shift to really let faculty do what they knew they needed to get done. What we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, or what I want to spend most of the time though talking about, is the easy on-ramps that we used, and how that helps us demonstrate value in terms of saving to students and making sure that people can find our collections. So the easy on-ramps were our earliest adopters. We spent a lot of time walking step by step, training on the software, training how to use LibreTexts, and identifying the programs the courses that were going to be most high impact for our pathways. So like, you know, the gut level English courses, the gut level math courses, like what is always going to be on that CalGETC or requirement list. And we made sure that we celebrated the wins like as soon as they started coming in. Our first attempt at doing OERs was actually on Google Sites as a way to try and make it easy to share and with as few paywalls and also at little cost to the college as possible, because money is also tight. And we are lucky enough to have grants now, but we don't know where those grants are going to be in the future. So how do we build something that'll last? And the first thought was that it might be Google Sites. But we found that Google Sites made tracking the licensing incredibly difficult, especially when faculty were indecisive about where they wanted to put things. So when they started compiling materials, they would pages that get moved around or paragraphs that get moved around without the attribution following them. And that started to get very difficult for, for me as the person who's responsible for tracking the licensing. And so we transitioned to Conductor and started pulling those and started letting Conductor handle all of that detailed work. And that really freed us up to run all of these projects at the same time. We also made sure that the support that we provided was not just the research support and the copy editing and the licensing, but that our faculty were rewarded for their time, because they are when you publish Creative Commons, you are surrendering a certain amount of intellectual property rights that you would otherwise have. And it's work that's outside of your normal scope of business most of the time. And so we want to make sure that we acknowledge the work that goes in, that we reward people for participating in it. And it let us run 5, 10, 20 projects at the same time and let people participate at the level that they wanted to. And so people who were just interested in adopting, when they went through and reviewed and gave written reviews for OERs to start investigating the space, they got a stipend for that. For somebody who needed to author a book from scratch because there was not an existing resource, they get a stipend for that. And it starts to reflect the different level of work that's involved based on where you are. And because we were able to address, or once we were able to start addressing multiple projects at the same time, we started partnering with the instructional technology our person and our pedagogy specialist to run summer institutes. And so this was a way for faculty to come together and work with their peers. And so we were able to get a really big collaborative group feeling about going through OERs, adopting them, talking about when it is that maybe you wanted to adapt things. Maybe, you really liked how things were in this one book, but this other book had that one chapter that you really just couldn't let go of. And the remixer made it incredibly simple to just bring that over. You can adjust the formatting, and now you have the book that was specifically designed for your course. And being able to do it as a group really helped people stay on task. There was also a chance to be collegial when a lot of the times, like, faculty sort of work mostly alone unless they're in a governance group, and being able to do what you love, what you're the subject matter expert in, while you're with other people who are experts in the thing that they're doing. It really helped everybody get a sense of it was time to up their game. And so this is just a list of the projects that I have in my Conductor page right now. A couple of these I think have managed to get moved into the completed file, which is awesome. Oh, no. And then I can also, yes, filter verification. And then I can also go ahead and track all of the ones that we have adapted. And so we can use this for marketing materials for the college to help drive enrollment about, like, hey, look, these are all different topics that our faculty have, where our faculty have adapted or authored works. And so it's a good promotional material for us here too. And like, we really got started in the fall of 2023. And so, that agile planning that I touched on very briefly at the beginning, that is still a thing that's happening. Our board updated their policies, so we had to adjust our stipend tiers for students. We also, not for our students, for our instructors. We also had a lot, or like once the stipends were really formalized, we wanted to make sure that we had like easy to demonstrate standards for what kind of work was going to be receiving those stipends. And so we went ahead and used like California has the ASCCC is the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. They had published their Open Educational Resource Initiative had published desiderata for state funding, and so we turned those into a checklist that our faculty could use for whether they're for their textbooks. We have an in-house peer review process, so faculty from we're too small for like subject departments, so we sort of have meta departments. We call them learning areas. And when a faculty member submits a textbook to our work group for review, it gets reviewed by somebody within their learning area to make sure that it's hitting all of those marks that we've identified from the state. We also standardize documentation for the stipend approval process to help, guard against ideas like appearances of favoritism and to clarify our information flow. We received other grants that were outside of our initial or beyond the initial grant that we got. And so we now have multiple degrees that are degree pathways that are being prioritized by different granting agencies. And so there's, balancing which of those we're going to buy, where the focus goes on those. A lot of the more recent grants are for programs that are low in terms of existing resources. One of the programs we're working on right now is for heavy equipment operations. So bulldozer driving, tractor driving, running excavators. There is no material that is openly licensed that we can that we've really been able to find. Like there's some extension videos on YouTube. We can pull transcripts from that. But we're having to get really creative about generating content for those. Because we're sort of breaking ground on that. And so, going from the courses where, like English 1, there are dozens, if not hundreds of books to choose from and to weave together and to make what it is that you want. Heavy equipment operation, we're more or less cutting ground there. And like I said, we're also looking at making sure that we're implementing ZTC homework systems. For people who may not know, if you are in a math class or a chemistry class or a biology class, like especially in the sciences, the paid textbooks often come with homework systems attached that are going to have all of the actual assignments, quizzes, assessments in them. And part of having to purchase the license for the book is that it's what gives you access to the homework system. And we're looking for ways, and so we're now transitioning to using Adapt from LibreText as a way to supplant having to rely on Pearson or McGraw-Hill or whomever for those, so that we can make sure that our students have everything that they need to take the classes beyond whatever so that there are no charges beyond what tuition was when they first got into the course. Tips and takeaways are going to be that one of the things for being a ZTC pathway is that it does need to be there needs to be at least one section of a course that is offered every time that course is run that is a ZTC section. So faculty don't all have to use the same books. They're free to choose whichever they want, but for a pathway to be rated ZTC, the person who's doing the OER version needs to be running at least one version of it every time. And so while I have definitely enjoyed being able to work with multiple adjunct faculty, adjuncts aren't on the schedule as reliably. I mean, we do have some that we work with continually, and so that's been helpful on my side in terms of when we have a specific subject. But for especially those gut level courses, we really need to make sure that we have the full-time faculty involved, because they also help with creating the course outlines of record. They're also involved in hiring decisions, and they're the ones who are really going to make sure that this culture continues beyond just me being here and specifically pushing people. But having a facilitator for the campus is not really negotiable if you want to have if you want to be able to run pathways for your students. It is a lot of work. There's a lot of I spend a lot of my time tracking things down, coordinating with IT and coordinating with the registrar's office, and developing new tools so that we can have tracking things, so that we can communicate clearly with our students, so that they can make informed decisions when they're registering for their classes, and and then just making sure that you're clear with what compensation will look like, what needs to be handed over for that compensation, what kind of scheduling are we looking at, how long do we think projects are going to be, how to creating realistic timelines for everyone, and then also coordinating those support systems of, I've got student workers who help with copy editing and the accessibility checks, and LibreTexts having a detailed back licensing page lets me just scan through and let people know whether or not they can use the material that they were looking at the way that they intended. And then as your program grows, the needs of the program are going to change. We needed a lot more put into marketing to faculty at the beginning, and now we need to shift those sorts of marketing priorities over to students and to our outreach services, so that we can draw people in with the work that we already did. And that is the end of my presentation. What questions do we have?
Thank you so much, Heather. And I know that we've had some people throughout the week ask questions of us about what it's like to do project management at the campus scale. So I'm hoping that those people will chime in and ask for some ideas about how to get started, what has been helpful for you, and beyond what you obviously shared